Hello, I'm Esther Gitu. It's Thursday, March 3rd. This is Africa 54.
The United Nations General Assembly overwhelmingly approves a resolution condemning Russia for the war in Ukraine. Conservative icon and Virginia's Secretary of State, Kay James, discusses the future of the Republican Party. And as the second edition of the Basketball Africa League kicks off in Dakar, Senegal, a closer look at how the BAL replaced the African Basketball League.
We begin on Thursday with Russian forces continuing their withering bombardment of Ukrainian cities. The Eastern European country is marking 1 week since Russia invaded the nation. As Russian forces move forward with the attacks on Ukrainian cities, the number of refugees who have fled Ukraine now exceeds more than 1 million people, according to the UN Refugee Agency. Despite Russian assaults on Kharkiv, Chernihiv and Mariupol, Britain's defense ministry says they all remain in Ukrainian hands. The status of who controls the city of Kherson remains unclear. There was a large explosion in the city of Chernihiv on Wednesday. A video shows a car driving through quiet streets.
Пиздец.
When suddenly a massive explosion was captured by dashcam. It was a very close call for the people in the car. Meanwhile, a second round of peace talks between the Russian and Ukrainian officials could be held Thursday, but there has been little sign of a potential breakthrough. An initial meeting Monday yielded only plans for further talks. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told reporters Thursday that its forces will continue their effort to destroy Ukraine's military infrastructure and will not allow its neighbor to represent a military threat to Russia. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the United States remains open to finding a diplomatic solution to the situation, to the crisis, but that Russia must first de-escalate. Blinken is traveling to Europe on Thursday for a series of meetings with NATO, and NATO foreign ministers are set to hold a meeting Friday in Brussels. VOA Pentagon correspondent Carla Bob has more.
Russian shelling hammering Ukraine. With reports the southern city of Kherson has fallen to the Russian military. Thousands of civilians killed or wounded since the invasion began, Ukrainian authorities say. Babies like this one in Kyiv, born in the cellars of hospitals, as Ukrainians in cities across the country are forced underground.
Sheltering wherever they can, including children receiving cancer treatment, who are now living in the basements of Ukraine's children's hospitals, with doctors and nurses doing their best to care for them as explosions boom overhead. This is shameful.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced further sanctions on Russian businesses, this time on 22 defense-related entities that make the combat weapons used to attack the Ukrainian people. A ban on Russian aircraft entering American airspace now in place, with Belarus also sanctioned for its role in enabling the Russian invasion. Near Kyiv, U.S. officials say a convoy of Russian military vehicles more than 60 kilometers long has stalled due to fuel and food shortages and resistance from Ukrainians.
To the Russian soldiers sent to the front lines of an unjust, unnecessary war, I say your leaders are lying to you. Do not commit war crimes. Do everything you can to put down your weapons and leave Ukraine.
The Pentagon Thursday slammed Russian President Vladimir Putin's order earlier this week to place his nuclear forces on increased alert.
Such provocative rhetoric and possible changes to nuclear posture involving the most consequential weapons in our respective arsenals is unacceptable. The United States has not taken any similar steps.
Kirby announced that the Pentagon would postpone a scheduled intercontinental ballistic missile test this week as a sign the U.S. would not engage in nuclear behavior that could be misunderstood.
We did not take this decision lightly, but instead to demonstrate that we are a responsible nuclear power.
The U.S. continues to send assistance to Ukrainian forces while warning that Russian fighters will learn from their initial failures. Carla Babb, VOA News, the Pentagon.
Poland has taken in 50% of the more than 1 million refugees who have fled Ukraine in the past week, according to the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. For more on the story, I'm joined live from the border of Ukraine and Poland by Philip Crowther, Associated Press global media reporter. Philip, what's the latest on the situation where you are?
Well, look, we're really getting a sense here of how many refugees have already left Ukraine, how many have passed through this town of Przemyśl. We're not far away from the border between Poland and Ukraine. This is the first train stop after you get out of Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital city, and out of Ukraine into Poland. You can see the train station here behind me, a steady flow here of refugees throughout the day, some passing through, moving on to other trains that might take them to other parts of Poland where maybe family members are waiting for them. Others appear to be spending the night here and certainly waiting here for very, very long stretches. The train line you can see right behind me, that is the one that trains that are still coming in from Kyiv are using. 3 every day arrive here on that very, very long journey across the border into Poland. There are also trains coming here from the southern port of Odessa. Of course, this has been a treacherous journey for all of these refugees arriving here, be it from the capital city or from other towns throughout Ukraine. At the same time that there are thousands passing through here, getting off trains, there are other people getting on those same trains and heading back to Ukraine, as improbable as it sounds. Only women and children largely getting off those trains, and a lot of men getting on. Where are they going? Well, they say, many of them tell me, that they are going to protect their country and to protect their families that are still inside the country.
What are some of the stories people have told you today?
Well, look, these are desperate, heartbreaking, and sometimes a little bit edifying stories as well, because what we're seeing here is that the humanitarian situation, a lot of humanitarian organizations getting together here, are very, very well organized. The people who get over the border here into Poland get a very warm welcome here on the Polish side of the border, be it here at the train station or at other areas in this town where refugees first arrive, where they get a meal, where there are clothes donations, where there are diaper donations as well, and also places where they can spend the night. Now, the people that you speak to here, though, are, as I mentioned, invariably women, because the men have to stay behind. Any Ukrainian man between the age of 18 and 60 is not allowed to leave the country. They are expected to stay and possibly fight to defend their country. Now, among those women who I spoke to today was one with her 5-year-old son who said that she had had no contact for a while with her husband. Why? Because he's a reservist, had to stay, and is presumably now on the front lines. She simply does not know. So those are some of the stories that we're hearing here in Przemyśl. This is, again, the closest major town to the border between Poland and Ukraine, and one of those places where we're seeing an enormous influx of refugees from Ukraine.
Wow, what a dire situation, Philip. Philip, thanks very much for the update. Philip Crowther is Associated Press global media reporter, reporting live from Ukraine-Poland border. Tens of thousands of Ukrainians are also seeking refuge in Hungary. John Spear narrates this report by Gabor Ansin in Zahony and Lonya, one of the entry points along Hungary's border with Ukraine.
This border bridge between Hungary and Ukraine is symbolic. It was here that the last Soviet soldier left Hungary 30 years ago, crossing over to what was then the USSR, now an independent Ukraine. The departure marked for many the end of Russia's domination of Central Europe, which many believed would be forever. Now, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has sent hundreds of thousands fleeing across borders like this one with Hungary. A few steps inside Ukraine, VOA caught up with a group that included Yana, a 31-year-old mum who fled the town of Bucha near Kyiv with her children. She points in the direction of the home she left abruptly and may never see again.
This is the road in Bucha where my daughter was going to kindergarten.
Yana did not give her surname and asked not to show her face. Others did not mind being identified.
What I left basically all of my life there. I just lost my whole life that I was building there, and yeah, that's crazy. Capital of your country is under the bomb attack. It's awful. So in the middle of Europe in the 21st century.
In the last few days, more than 100,000 people have arrived here in Hungary, and hundreds of thousands have poured into other nations, especially Poland. The numbers are growing rapidly, and calls for more help for Ukraine are mounting.
We are begging the whole world to help us, because this is our land, this is our country. We don't want to move anywhere. We are Ukrainians. We are the family of 44 million of people. And we ask Russian people to go to the streets and demonstrate that they are people, basically.
Just as Russia launched its assault on Ukraine, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban relaxed Hungary's stringent migration policies, saying his nation would rise to the challenge of taking care of Ukrainian refugees, quote, quickly and efficiently, end quote. Local governments have set up reception centres and temporary accommodation. State-funded aid organisations are providing food packages, and charities are collecting donations across Hungary.
We brought baby care products, toiletries, long-lasting food products, fever medications, women's hygiene products. One doesn't need to care about what the other's origin is. We need to help. Here is the proof. We have to be there.
As the invasion intensifies and the violence grows, the journey to safe ground is getting even more difficult, with refugees waiting days to cross borders. Only a few days ago, this was one of the easier routes to safety, but that is rapidly changing. For Garbor Anchin in Lonya, Hungary, John Spear, VOA News.
Moroccan nationals who fled the war in Ukraine are starting to return home to Casablanca following their evacuation from the war-torn country.
There are still 26 to 28 Moroccan students blocked in the city of Somi. Please do your best to circulate this information to the authorities to help them, because they have not found any solution. There are no trains or transport. The roads are closed. In Kharkov, it is empty. The last train that will leave from there is tomorrow.
Compared with the students from Kharkov and Kyiv, our trip was good. We headed to the city of Izmail, which is next to the Romanian borders, after the Romanian volunteers helped us with their own money by bringing us by cars to a hotel to spend the night.
Morocco continues to organize special flights for its nearly 8,000 students enrolled in Ukrainian universities that are departing for Bucharest, Budapest, and Warsaw.
Africans. I think fighting is not a good solution. They have to come to conclusion. They sit together.
Meanwhile, Africans across the continent are expressing their views and concerns over Russia's invasion of Ukraine. VOA spoke with several people in Nairobi, Kenya.
I think fighting is not a good solution. They have to come to conclusion. They sit together, they agreed for everything. There's no need of fighting, yeah. Okay, for Kenyans, it will be very difficult. For economy, we won't afford the food. I think even affording things will be very difficult. Yeah, when it comes to oil, the products will be very high.
It's not a good thing. Actually, they need to have a peace. They need to the leadership of Ukraine and Russia. They should come together and discuss, and then let them sort out the situations so that they reduce the problems that's causing to Ukraine and also to Russia. They bring unity among the two countries. Actually, everything will rise because we find that there is no more import from that country, from Ukraine. It's about the cost of living. It will really rise, even to double. And as you know, right now, Kenya is in a hard situation whereby food is so high. So if you find out that there is no more income of the product from outside, you find that the product is now increasing to double, whereby it will lead us to much sufferings. Yeah.
It is quite disappointing, very disappointing, because at the end of the day, there's nothing Russia has with Ukraine. It is just greed, or they are drunk with power. And they're trying to show themselves that they can do things the way they want to do, which is unethical and not according to the natural law. It is very disappointing, discouraging, but we pray and wish it does not extend further. There is a risk of affecting, because some of us have feelings for Ukraine. It is not comparable to Russia. And those age of colonization and taking over countries are gone. We're in a new age. We pray that what they happen will not expand, and we are also praying for the safety of Africa. Of course, you know, there is danger, there's death, there's hunger, and with the current, after the pandemic, people are jobless, people are not comfortable. It is a big threat to the nationhood of our people, because you have people there, like you see our people crying, wanting to be evicted from Ukraine. And also, it affects everywhere. Everybody is affected. It's a concern that even the United Nations and the NATO, etc., should be able to get involved and see how they can resolve it the fastest. It's a risk to all of us.
Kenyans in Nairobi expressing their views on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. At least 200 gunmen were killed in the past 3 days in Nigeria's central northern state of Niger during a security operation to clear armed gangs from the area, according to the state commissioner. Gunmen have terrorized citizens in the north and northwest of the country and have gained notoriety for kidnapping hundreds of students and villagers for ransom and killing dozens. According to Niger Regional Commissioner in charge of internal security, some leaders of the armed gangs were among those killed during an operation led by the army volunteers from local vigilante groups and community leaders. The United Nations is endorsing a resolution to end plastic pollution. The UN Environment Assembly has wrapped up its meeting with delegates adopting a resolution to pave the way for the establishment of a legally binding global treaty by 2024 to end plastic pollution. Virtual participants from 175 UN member states who attended the 3-day Global Environment Forum resolved to back legal tools that will revitalize action on the plastic menace. Espen, the outgoing president of UNEA and Norway's Minister for Climate and Environment, is hailing the unanimous endorsement of a resolution to eliminate plastic pollution. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Still to come, the second season of the Basketball African League tips off on Saturday. Stay with us.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Lina Khmoudou, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
Season 2 of the Basketball Africa League is here. After a historic inaugural season, 12 national champions from across the continent are ready to compete for the 2022 BAL Championship. From March 5th to March 28th, tune in and follow the BAL on Voice of America. 54 countries, 12 teams, 1 continent, but only 1 champion. Game on.
As we celebrate women in this month of March, we spotlight those who have beaten extreme odds to achieve positions of influence. K.C. James, Secretary of the Commonwealth of Virginia and former president of the D.C.-based conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation, is one of them. She spoke recently with VOA hosts Carol Castillo and Kim Lewis on Press Conference USA about growing up in the projects and playing a critical role in the desegregation of schools in Virginia.
It was horrible. It was horrible. Most junior high school girls are trying to sneak blue eyeshadow out of the house from their moms. And that's the biggest concern they had. But integrating the schools in the South here in Richmond, Virginia was anything but. We had to walk past barricades and screaming parents and barking dogs and just to get an education. And I want people to know that. I want people to understand that, because I want them to understand that with all of that, telling the history, what exactly happened, I can today say that made me who I am today. We overcame that. And it's a story of triumph. It's an American story. It was a difficult period in our history, and I don't try to sugarcoat it or cover it up. And I am so grateful for those individuals who came before me who suffered even more than we had to do as we integrated the South. So Black History Month for me is a time of reflection. It's a time of thinking about and appreciating the shoulders on which we stand, the sacrifices that were made, the price that was paid for me to live the life that I live today. And I hope it serves as encouragement to the next generation who have to find their way in this country. I hope it serves as inspiration to them. If we were able to overcome and survive, and in some cases even thrive, that they can too.
That was K.C. James, Secretary of the Commonwealth of Virginia and former president of the D.C.-based conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation, speaking to VOA's Carol Castillo and Kim Lewis. The second season of the Basketball Africa League tips off on Saturday in Dakar, Senegal, Cairo, Egypt, and Kigali, Rwanda. 12 teams are competing to succeed Zamalek of Egypt, winner of the first season of the BAL. Initiated by the NBA, the BAL replaces the former African Basketball League. But how did we get there? Yakuba Wederaogo and Treso Matondo tell us more in this report narrated by VOA's Vincent McCory.
When Egypt's Zamalek lifted the very first Basketball Africa League trophy at the Kigali Arena on May 30th, 2021, the African continent took another step in professionalizing its basketball. Like the Egyptian winner, created in 1911, most of the continent's popular clubs have existed for a very long time. But it was only in the 1970s that an inter-club basketball competition was really born, the African Cup of Champion Clubs. The 1980s saw an explosion of African talents in the NBA.
It's no surprise the Basketball Africa League has named two of its biggest awards after pioneering big men on the continent. The BAL's Most Valuable Player Award, named after Akeem the Dream Olajuwon from Nigeria, and the BAL's Defensive Player of the Year Award, named in honor of Dikembe Mutombo, the Congolese giant, probably the two best big men ever from Africa. They've inspired a lot of young African players.
The NBA started showing a growing interest in the continent, holding the very first Basketball Without Borders in Johannesburg, South Africa in 2003. Senegal hosted the 17th edition in 2019. Initiated by the NBA in conjunction with FIBA, this program focuses on improving basketball skills for young African talent. NBA players coach these youngsters. Today, a dozen of Africans play in the NBA and are asserting themselves in the most remarkable way.
When counting the players from Africa, we come across something rather difficult, because there are many players with African names that are registered as players from another country whose parents were Africans. Joel Embiid, who plays for the Philadelphia 76ers, is Nemias Quetta. Now, he's registered as a Portuguese player, but his parents are from Guinea-Bissau.
The NBA no longer doubts Africa's wealth of talents who just need nurturing to blossom. Hence the birth of Basketball Africa League in February 2020. The first edition took place in 2021 in just one city, Kigali, Rwanda, because of COVID-19 pandemic.
Young, talented African basketball players have been scouted from these camps. They include Joel Embiid, who now plays for the Philadelphia 76ers, a team that is doing very well in the NBA League. Another player who also attended this camp is Pascal Sakim from Cameroon, who plays for Toronto Raptors and most recently helped his team to win the first NBA championship.
According to its promoters, NBA Africa involves individual investors, including former President Barack Obama, former NBA star Dikembe Mutombo, originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo.
The NBA is making an investment in growing the game across the continent, broadly speaking, and investing in supporting coaches and game officials. Will continue to spend money on the game.
For this second edition of the BAL, 12 committed teams will compete in 3 cities, Dakar, Cairo, and Kigali, to succeed Zamalek. The opening match will pit DUC of Senegal against Sadiou Legacy Athletic Club of Guinea on March the 5th in Dakar. This year, the teams have been divided into 2 conferences of 6, the Nile Conference and the Sahara Conference.
That was VOA's Vincent Makori narrating for Yakuba Wedraogo and Treso Matondo. And that's our show for today. We thank you for watching.